Oh, let me call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, I want to say thank you to, before we get started here, thank you, Jennifer, for chairing the meeting. What a great job, and I appreciate the work of the board. And thank you for not voting me off the island while I was away.
You couldn't wait to say that,
I
right?
appreciate that. Under presentations, the Economic Development Commission update. Ann?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. So, Three Stooges. Hello. 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 Hello.
Yes, no.
So we are starting. The update for the welcome signs in town. There's only 4 that are allowed now by the state of Connecticut DOT. The price that we had put forward was for 8 different welcome signs, and now it's down to 4. So the price that we're looking for from the Board of Selectmen and that account that we have is $3,900. They have to be they cannot be in wood, they have to be in PVC or metal. And they are giving us the placement. Hugh Sullivan is so kind as to make us sketches. Once we do the sketches, we're going to submit them to the DOT and get our encroachment permit. So we're moving quickly with this.
Ann, is that $3,900 each?
No, for the total thing, with the installation,
Thank you.
all the materials and the producing the signs. The signs cannot be 4x8 anymore, they've reduced to 4x6, so that's why the price has gone down. So that's my first request from the Board of Selectmen, is for $3,900 so we can move forward, because if we don't have the money to move forward, then there's no sense in us going in front of the DOT.
And did that matter go before planning? Did you, I know you went, I know,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's part of the streetscape, so they
Okay.
were excited about it.
and they were
We'll get a letter
supportive,
for
or
824.
they're going to send a letter? Okay.
So that's my first request, okay. So now banners and flags, there's more. So the banners and flags and the brackets will be put up all at once. We've come up with a schedule that the banners will be put up March, April, and May, and then we will add with the flags starting the weekend before Memorial Day, July, August, and September, and keep them up till just after Labor Day. So there's 32 flags, there's 30 banners. The logo will be produced once we get approval. The cost of the banners and flags now is a real number. This is not a guess number. This is from quotes, one from a place called All American Flags, and then the banners were from Southbury Printing. Southbury Printing. So the total cost that we had come up with originally, now the real cost is $10,130. The EDC has a line item for the banners and the flags, which was $2,000 that we have. So we're requesting another $8,130 to complete the project. And if we do go forward and it is approved by the Board of Selectmen, we can put these up this year, which will be great for Memorial Day as well. The cost of, I know somebody's going to ask this question about the cost of putting the flags up. If the public facilities doesn't have the wherewithal to give us somebody to put those brackets up one time, then there's money in the EDC budget that we can take care of that to install, which shouldn't be that much. And we can just either reimburse public facilities, or we can hire someone to do that. And it's a matter of just screws. So that's why I'm here.
All right, I think we can you send that in the email, that whole thing to me, to get out to the board? I don't think we have the report in a written side. The money, you're talking about the money that is in the board, I think Mike, correct me, I think we put for a study into, for a marketing study, which we concluded needed more, and it was put under the selectmen's budget
Right.
for that.
And it was to be distributed at your discretion.
It was for a study. So I think we really have to decide, we have to work that out, because it's not really, that's not what the money was there for, was
So it's
it?
for marketing and strategic planning, which what we're doing in the EDC.
Right.
So you're saying this money won't come from that money set aside? for
No,
the
well,
study?
no,
Should.
that's what, that, it should.
It should.
It
It
could.
wasn't
It should.
specifically, we should look back at the specifics, but I don't believe it was specifically worded that it was for a study. I believe it was for
Strategic
something
planning
like
and marketing.
more-
I just
little
want to
like-
make sure,
Yeah, I think this is, no, I think especially with the, with the reduced, unfortunately, frankly, I think the reduced ability to place them in certain places.
But we did our due diligence,
Yep.
and so now we know the
Seems to have
real
been thorough and
cost.
good. I have no issues with it.
I would suggest, since you're, actually, it's two components to what you're saying. The welcoming signs, why did they reduce it to 4?
Because that's all we're allowed, because of the different areas that the state owns. They only allow us, you can't have it under a bridge, you can't have it near an abutment, too close to a guardrail, there's all specifics.
What are the 4 areas?
Sorry?
Where are the 4 gateway
So the four
areas?
so one is called a village gateway sign, which would be on exit 15 coming down the ramp. We can't have it across the street because that's already delegated for the people that have the shrubs and the flowers. So that's already taken, so the only spot we have is the corner there when you come down off 15, coming from Waterbury. Then there's 188, we can have a sign on Strongtown Road, and one on 67, where the line for Oxford to Southbury is. And the last sign is, oh God, help me here, Robin. Exit 13, yes, when you come off the exit ramp. So those are the 4 that we're allowed in the town of Southbury through DOT standards.
I would suggest that we do a resolution, a conditional resolution that once we get the 824 referral from planning on the welcoming signs, that they move ahead and do them. I mean, that's a non-issue. So I think, so I would move that, we do that.
It was also for the banners and flags, they were approved as well.
So, only because there's more factors to the banners and flags, I would make it 2 separate things. So I would do the first one for $3,900 for the welcoming signs, I would move that. And then, the second sign, I would say, we probably want them to come back with the plans, so we can just see them.
Okay, the only, I understand what you're saying, and I understand that you have to be careful because it is a lot of money. But
Just more.
if we go forward with the program and we keep delaying it every month, as we are, then we don't know if we have the flags and banners, so now we can't do the logo. Now it's not gonna be put up in March, it's not gonna be put up in April, it's not gonna be put up in May.
Right.
So I just don't want it to be delayed so long that it's
But the
next
one,
year.
but the first one is state property. So
Right, the first one, yeah.
that we should do it. We should just
They're
absolutely do it
completely
tonight.
distinct projects, too, in my mind. I mean, one can
They're all
happen
part of
without-
streetscape, but
Right,
two
but one
distinct.
can happen
yeah,
without
right.
the other.
Well, the second one needs to have the 824
Right.
confirmation. So once we get that, we should be able to do that next meeting, assuming we get it.
But on the second one, the banners and flags, so you said you would have, you'd have the brackets up, you'd have banners,
The brackets stay
Or-
permanently.
right, you'd have
Year-round.
banners March, April, and May, and you'd have flags after that through September.
Right, added on to the.
Okay, so if you were to put up banners this March, what would those banners be? What would they say? What would they
Just
look
Southbury.
like?
They'd be Southbury and the branding on the bottom with, we have to come up with the logo, but it's just actually the way the Southbury's gonna look. But otherwise, we have the branding that we've done through the EDC.
And then how many light posts are we talking about putting brackets on
We're
to
talking
do
about
this?
30 banner posts, which have a post on top and a post on the bottom, 15 on each side of the road, and 16 flags on each side of the road. And that's one bracket.
Okay. And to me, I like both ideas, but I think the flags would be important for us to have for our parade, which would not fit the time frame that you just mentioned. Like, I think if we were to do this year, I think we'd want the flags to go up in May. So they're there for our Memorial Day
Right,
parade.
they'd go up the weekend before Memorial Day.
Okay, you
The
could
flags
ju-
would go up the weekend.
So what's your deadline? What is your deadline for
Well, we
getting
need
that
to
approval?
come up
But
with the,
There's
I
gotta
mean-
be a clear production timeline. What's the deadline for placing that order? so we can get them and get the,
So that order
get
would
everything
be, you
delivered.
guys approve it today, and then we go forward and,
But what's the deadline for?
I would
getting
say it
them
would
placed?
take 30 days by the time we get the, because we have a February meeting, so we decide on the logo, we'd order them, and then we'd be able to put them up in the market.
I think
Means
the
we have time.
logo's gonna have to be approved through this board.
Yeah, which
Yes.
means we have time.
Yeah, we have time, so.
Yeah.
If it's 30 days, if it's thereabout, but I think that's something we should be able to find out from the vendor, whichever vendor you end up deciding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long it's gonna take to produce and have them delivered. So if we meet every 2 weeks, if you got, if we get
See, the
a,
problem is we meet every month, so we had
Mhm.
our meeting yesterday.
but even if we met, even if we decided this by the end of February,
Mhm.
by the end of February, even if it was 60 days to deliver, we'd have plenty of time. Even if it was almost 90 days, we'd probably have enough time. So I think with some of the approvals that need to get done, well, I agree, timing wise, I think that's the most sense. I don't think we're in a position or having enough information to fully
Yeah,
approve.
so I think when you come back, because I think we were mentioning you coming back, we would have to see the design of this banner, like what it is that it's gonna look like, what it is that we're approving to put up, and the locations that these flags and banners are gonna go, because we're approving a specific plan. We're not just
So would
approving,
this be more palatable if we had an approval, hopefully this evening, on the flags at least, and the brackets, since you know the cost of the brackets, you know the cost of the banners, the flags.
We can approve, we likely could approve, put forth a resolution to approve, similar to what we're doing, to approve the spend pending review and approval of everything else that we need to approve.
But
you're looking for
but I would keep
confirmation
it
that
separate.
we'll actually spend the money when
Yeah.
it comes time to
That
spend the
part I don't
money,
have an issue.
right?
Oh, we'll spend the money.
No,
That
We'll
will
spend the
approve
money,
this.
don't
No,
worry.
you're looking for a comfort level that this
Yeah.
board will allow you to spend
we
the
support the
money,
initiative.
right? Maybe that is a level of comfort we can provide without, because I don't think we can actually approve the plan we can't approve the plan without seeing the plan or where it's gonna go or what the banners look like and all that.
Okay, so you need
And I-
to-
But assuming we're,
Plan in place.
assuming we're okay with all that stuff, I think that we would approve the project.
And I just wanna say, I mean, it's under my budget, and I think I could, come up with this number, but it's a little, we're trying to figure out, this is what we are looking to spend the money on. If the board is fine with this, I can work with that number with them, because it is under my budget, and I can spend money. But I think more is I think the board is definitely gonna see the plan for approval, not so much the money.
But I think
But the approval
it's a proposal.
of the concept
It's a
and-
clear proposal with, here's the design, here's what they're gonna look like, here's where they're going to be placed, and here's a line item breakdown of how that money that we're going to approve is going to be spent.
Okay, let me just ask you this question, I'm just gonna play devil advocate right now, and it's it's nothing against anything you're saying, but if this was in the EDC budgets, this $22,500, and the EDC made up this plan, we wouldn't have to come in front of the Board of Selectmen.
You would still need
And we
to
would
come
have
for
to-
approval of the design
The design,
and the placement.
but not
and
the
project.
ordering and the brackets and the getting them put up and,
You can
so
order
the placement as well?
That's
It's town property.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So just, could we
That's
take a
correct, and that
step
was
back?
the
Could we move to have the gateway signs, the signs into the town?
I think we should do that one first. Let's
I
get
would
that
move
off.
that, okay? So I move that the ordering of 4 signs, the release of the money to make that happen for you.
And you have
Well,
an
it's not even not the ordering of the signs right now. We have to know for sure through the state that we have the money to buy the signs once they say, yes, you could put them there.
So I move that they have the money to do this job, okay?
And
Anybody-
I have the money. So, yes, in that budget line item under me.
Second?
and I
Second.
can make that happen.
That I'm okay with.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, that's done.
Okay.
Now-
Now, the second one, you need
So
placement.
now we're done with the gateway signs. We can move
Okay.
forward with the gateway. Everybody knows what's going on. We'll get some sketches of what they look like. We'll get them to the board because 824, planning, we want to make sure it's approved. And this board says, yes, that sketch, we like that, let's,
Okay.
okay?
So for the flags and banners, you want to know where placement will be, exact costs, what the logo's going to look like, and Anything else?
I also, I mean, I haven't looked at the, like our bid policy. Does that come into play? Like,
The cost
has
of
anyone
it
looked at
does.
that?
Right,
The-
it's gonna
the
have to go,
dollar-
I can deal with that in my office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Right,
No, of course, these are just estimates. Estimate, I should have said.
right. So we'll go through that process.
They can do that internally.
We can take that internally, we don't have to do here at the board, that's,
Right, well, the
So
only
call me-
problem
Do your
is
best
with the
efforts
three
to get
companies,
best efforts.
is that the brackets that are made for our poles are made by one company.
we'll
Then
deal
there
with
you
that.
go. Okay,
and
that's your
We'll deal
answer.
that with, and through my office, and, that's where we'll deal, that's where it's supposed to be
Okay,
done.
so we'll come back at another meeting,
Oh, you poor-
We have a meeting?
February.
We have a meeting in 2 weeks, you can call an emergency meeting
Yeah, I
of
can
EDC
special
just to
meeting.
give that together if you can, and we can look at it, we'll look at it
Yeah,
next
yeah.
meeting.
It's not, just to be clear, I think, you know, we haven't voted on anything, but I think there's broad support for the concept of it. I just think we need the detail to approve it.
And there's a procedure we have to
Yeah.
follow. So, yeah,
Okay,
get with my office.
Thank you for
Alright.
everything.
no
Thank
problem.
you,
Thanks
Ann.
so much.
Thanks, Ann.
It's government. Okay, next on the agenda is Eagle Scout Project Wounded Warrior Science.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Henry.
Hello, Henry.
All right, so I have for you the planning committee has approved 4 of the 11 original signs. The one sign at each location: the Southbury Town Hall, the Southbury Senior Center, the Volunteer Fire Association, and the Southbury Public Library. And I'm here for the board's approval to place these signs, as well as a signature for my Boy Scout Eagle Scout Project Handbook, as well as a form for the Combat Wounded Family Support Organization that they need, that says that you approve of the placement of these 4 signs, that they need this before they ship me these signs for free, so.
I would just like to point out that Henry has gone to great lengths through this whole governmental process to get this project passed. And had it not have been for inclement weather on Tuesday, he would have gone before planning to increase
Yes.
by 2 places.
I
Are
would,
you still planning to do that?
I do, next Tuesday.
Okay.
I will ask the board if for approval of 2 more signs at Settlers Park, 1 at each parking lot at Settlers Park, so.
There's also a recommendation from planning here about contacting local businesses in town for permission to place these parking signs on private commercial property. Have you done that?
Yes, I have been in contact with Mr. Robert Laflamme, and he has committed a sign at the construction site of the, at the finished product.
Finished product, not
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the theater complex, and also his property in Heritage Village, so.
Great,
One or the other.
great. That's community support for the project. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Absolutely.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just,
Sorry.
I was just going to thank you for your efforts. I mean, I think you should get your Eagle Scout project done just by going through all the municipal processes that you've had to go through. Back and forth to various commissions, you know, you can be a good municipal lawyer someday and go before all of our administrative agencies.
Painful for all of us.
And
believe me.
do some development in the town. So I just want to, you know, thank you for your persistence in the matter. I think you're doing good work, and we're happy to support it. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Henry.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
That
Ann.
was relatively painful, painless. Okay, moving on to public comments. Before we do that,
No honorary planting? Is that all?
no, hang on.
Sorry.
I'd entertain a motion to add Arthur O'Neill to speak before the board.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Arthur? I hate to restrict you because you have good information.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. 3 things. One, you may have heard Recently, there's been a consensus revenue estimate showing a little bit of an uptick in revenues at the state level, and the budget deficit that was building in the current fiscal year, the one that we are in right now that ends June 30th, has been reduced or perhaps even eliminated by the increase in revenues. But I want to reiterate, in spite of that fact, or that story, that the state is still facing $1.5 billion of deficit for the coming fiscal year, the one that starts July 1, and another $1.6 billion in the year that starts the following July of 2018. So that's $3 billion more or less over the next 2 years. So there are going to be very severe restrictions on the availability of money. And even though you may not get another letter from the governor or someone telling you that you're not going to get something that you thought you were about to get the following week or month, don't expect money from the state, I guess is what I'm saying. The $31 million that came in the form of a settlement with one of the brokerage houses, or rather the bond rating houses, as a result of the meltdown in 2008, that goes a long way towards dealing with the current $56 million deficit that we were dealing with. So I guess what I'm saying is that's good news, but it's not really a solution to the longer-term, larger problem that's facing the state, and therefore that all of the towns, including Southbury across the state, have to deal with. We are still going to be on a very, very restricted diet when it comes to money coming from the state of Connecticut to be distributed, and I don't think anything that happened with the recent consensus revenue estimates changes what the governor said about looking to aid to education and aid to municipalities as being really where he's looking for reductions in spending to balance the state's budget, which is basically similar to what I said last time, and I just want to make sure that no one gets the idea, oh, well, the problem's going away because we found this $31 million. Second thing is that I saw the first selectman at the cost meeting, I believe, back on, I guess it was the 11th or something of January. I recognized him because the camera was pointing towards the podium, and the back of his head was just inside the camera range. At that event, there was some talk about tolls. And what amazes me is the degree to which, whenever the subject comes up, and how you could make money and use electronic tolls and how long it would take to put them up. And there's this discussion about, in many ways, the mechanics of tolls, but it sort of skips over a very important legal issue. And that is that when the Mianus River Bridge collapsed back in 1983, and the state was without money to start the massive reconstruction of roads and bridges that people realized we needed to do, because when they checked other bridges, they realized they were in almost the same shape as Mianus. The state had no money, and so went to the federal government and got a significant infusion of cash in 83, 84, and so on, in exchange for taking down the tolls that were on the roads on which we had tolls at that time. The deal with the federal government was that they would give us extra money every year, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars over the last several decades, 3 decades. But if the deal, part of that deal was also, if we ever put the tolls back up, we have to give them back the money. Now, we're talking about billions and billions, I don't know what the number is, but it's probably closing in on like $10 billion. Now, fortunately, it's not like they send in a backhoe or a pickup truck or something to come get the money. What they do is they then reduce the federal aid you get for road construction and maintenance, the federal, which is hundreds of millions of dollars a year for Connecticut, in order to recapture the money out of future earnings, so to speak. Think of it that way. It's like a wage execution on the state of Connecticut. So anytime someone talks about putting up tolls, and I heard this conversation, I saw it going on there, and I was, as I'm so often, I'm sort of amazed that no one said, but remember, if we put up tolls, we have to refund the federal money that we've collected all these years, unless there's a change in Washington about policy, and would really require a change in statutes in D.C., then you're really netting a much smaller number than what you hear for the toll. So if as part of your conversations or your thinking, and somebody says to you, well, if the state's going to put up tolls, that solves our financial problems, it does not. even putting up the tolls, even if we got a lot of extra cash, even if we could do it very, very quickly, it's not the magic bullet, it's not the solution or the panacea to our current fiscal problem. Because, again, unless the feds agree to relinquish the claim they would have on us going forward, we're not going to see a big increase in our net revenues as a result of putting up tolls. The only way to get to that number would be to have tolls that are so high that it's been estimated that people would in fact do what they normally don't do with a $2 toll or $3 toll. They would look for ways to get around the tolls. They would avoid the roads that have the tolls and use back roads to avoid them. If you put a $10 toll on 84 coming in from Danbury, people are going to look for a way to get around it, make it high enough. And there have been studies that have been done. So you can't go crazy in terms of the number you put on the toll. And if you can't do that, then you can't really make enough money to recoup the money for the feds to recoup what they are expecting to get and make a lot of extra money on top of that. The third thing I want to mention is the last time I was here, and I can't recollect if I know I talked about it, I don't remember if I had actually filed the bill for the body cameras to try to get the language rewritten so that Southbury would qualify. But that bill has been filed, and we'll see how it goes.
Great.
Other towns are affected, and should be a coalition of resident state trooper towns that should be seeking to get covered by that, because that's what we were told at the time the legislation was passed was going to happen, that the resident trooper towns were going to be eligible to apply for the money. So,
Did you put in a bill to amend the existing bill, or a new bill completely for?
it was to amend the law
Okay.
which had passed.
Okay.
How it ends up being treated, if it gets anywhere in terms of the committee process, I'm not sure, but it would be an amendment to just clarify that that we were intended to be covered, resident trooper towns were meant to be covered.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Art.
And thank you, Arthur, for your work. I do want to say, I'll make a little comment, is that, and I was going to comment later, but it's getting to the point where it's so difficult and so bad that it used to be Republican, Democrat. Now it's almost like municipalities, the state. Everybody's in the same boat, and everybody's crying. Everybody at the Council of Small Towns, CCM, is pretty much in agreement about the problem and the cuts that are coming. A bizarre thing that I found was this consolidation of health districts into county health districts, which I have not seen not one municipality, city, town, not one person saying, we're for this. And it continues to come up. I don't understand why it's even, it's just overwhelming to figure out how they could even continue down that path. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult. Our LoCIP money, the word is frozen. That's a revenue share of about 200,000 a year into our budget. What's really sad is there are actually towns, smaller towns, that have used this as a savings plan. And now they have a project that's been approved, the paperwork's done, the engineering's done, and they want to pull their LoCIP money, maybe 1.2 million, and it's not coming. Hopefully they'll be able to bond. They need to do bonds to get that LoCIP money. Is that correct, Arthur?
Well, you have to spend them. You have to spend the money to get reimbursed for it.
Right.
The way the LoCIP works. So if they don't have cash in their bank account, or they can do a tax anticipation note or something like that, depending on the size of the project. But if you're talking about a town, say the size of Roxbury or something, they're looking at it for their money that they sort of had available was a couple of $100,000 basically. And so if they can do that, then they'll be okay. I remember when this first sort of came up a few years ago, there was some talk about LoCIP, and I remember when Southbury used to treat it, doing it the same way, let the thing pile up, and it was like well over $1 million, and I got this list and wondered why Southbury wasn't using the money. So I'm glad to see the town has been, since the last couple of years at least, been using it rather than just letting it ride, so to speak. That was a dangerous thing.
Our balance is roughly 600,000 of LoCIP. Is it frozen or it's not frozen? We haven't spent it, therefore it's frozen?
Right, there's an allocation, an availability of money, but within the program, but the state bonded and spent all of the bond money because the authorization for bonding was capped off at $825 million. The requests for funding were $860 million. So there's more request than there is available funds. And I'm not quite sure what the answer is going to be. Obviously, over time, as bonds get paid off, there will be more money available. The other option is for the legislature to actually authorize bonding to bump us up to at least the 860 number.
But if we haven't already submitted a project under our LoCIP funds, is our money available to us to do that or not?
You can't get the money right now.
Right, how long, we don't know how long.
We don't know how long it's
Okay,
going to be. It's going to be for a while.
Okay, great, okay.
Jennifer,
So we'll go back to accumulating.
just quickly, it appears from a finance standpoint, from what we understand, is that we have $200,000 of this year's
Annually,
budget.
right.
We do not expect to get that $200,000.
Correct.
So that's going to put a $200,000 hole in the budget. We have to make that up or do something with that.
Right.
But yet, our total there, according to the list, as I get from Bill Sarosky, is about $750,000.
Okay,
Even if we had a project to submit, we couldn't get it because there is no bonding money. They fund most of it out of bonds, they're out of cash. So even if we submitted it, that $750,000, we wouldn't get. You recall a couple of years ago, the Board of Finance changed the process. We used to let it build and build and build, and then we said, no, we're going to start taking a certain amount of that money out every year based on something Art had said to me some time ago. And we started taking cash out. But in this year's budget, the $200,000, I understand that we
Won't be there.
we're not going to get. And then the rest of it, what happens at the state, who knows?
So
Thanks, John.
we're working with it, just be aware of it. We're coming into our budget process, we're working with that. That being said, that's the year after, we're still needing to adjust with this year. Okay, next on the agenda, public comment, limited to 3 minutes.
Yep.
Good evening, Lorraine Marcantino, Heritage Village, and they're just 3 quick things. Jennifer knows one of them I'm going to say right now. I met her at the Senior Services Senior Center meeting, and I just want to keep on the table that what we're looking for, at least what I'm looking for, and a number of the residents at Heritage Village are looking for, is for the Senior Center to have its own website that looks akin to what we have in Heritage Village. For right now, I know I go on the town website and, I just can navigate it fairly well, but not easily. But many of the people in the village have trouble. They'd like to have the Senior Center have its own website and have it, again, the model is very good from Heritage Village. That's number 1. Number 2, the other thing I'd like to keep on the table for you guys to look at is when Ann was talking about the streetscape. Remember, our lighting is low. We need to look at a way to increase the lumens and the light that's available, at least in certain parts of it. Third, Mike, I'm looking forward to your report on the Senior Tax Abatement Commission study. I know that it was about 2 or 3 months ago that Fran Owen gave Jeff this work that she had done, looking at the state and what the other towns did, and I'm hoping that your report will be up on the website that we can get it.
But that's going to be a long process.
That's good, as long as I know it's going to show
It's not
us.
senior,
Okay,
just to
okay.
It's
clarify.
not just,
No.
it's not
Let me-
senior. It's a tax abatement. standpoint.
Tax abatement. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you, Lorraine, appreciate it. Any other public comment? Linda Dion, please.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Len DeYoung, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition. I just wanted to stop in for what will be less than 3 minutes of brief remarks. Most importantly, to thank you all for your tremendous support for the issues that we had identified during the acquisition of the Heritage Village Water Company, the water resource-related specific issues. We have a great team in place with the town of Southbury, with Connecticut Water Company, with PRWC and others, as well as some funding, thanks to your leadership, to get that work done, and it couldn't have happened without you, so thank you very much. I also wanted you to be aware that the state water plan is progressing. PRWC is playing an active role in the state water planning process, serving on both the advisory group to the Water Planning Council, as well as the Science and Technical Committee. The draft plan will be presented to the Water Planning Council in April. There are 6 more meetings left, 3 workshops and 3 public hearings. One of those public meetings will be held here in Southbury on February 23rd in this room at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3. If you could participate, great. If you can help us spread the word, that's also great. Go to our website, pomprog.org, and we have all the links to the state water planning process. And lastly, I wanted to share with you some exciting news that we recently heard from the Connecticut Community Foundation that our Environmental Youth Corps program has been approved. We have funding, so that along with the Dr. Mark Taylor internship program, which is entering its 4th year, is yet another way that we'll be able to help develop our stewards of the future. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Len.
I appreciate your work and the work you helped us with. Okay, everybody has, now, any other public comments? A lot of people in the audience today, very nice. Any other public comments? Okay, I see none. Announcements and correspondence. I don't think there's any question on that. You have your reports,
I would just like to know, now that,
announcements and correspondence.
no, I moved on to reports, because you did.
Okay.
Under reports, animal control, now that Marilyn will be retiring February 1st, what are we thinking? Are we,
We're
are you
coming up with a plan.
looking at that? Okay, great, thank you.
We are.
Thanks.
Okay, we are working on that. Any other questions? Okay. Entertain.
One quick thing, Jeff, so are there any updates on the website, not the report itself, but on the website, on some of the updates that have been in the works? I know that Gosha had been working on.
On the website?
Yeah, and a full revision sort of the redesign.
We're gonna be rolling out, there's a new website that's gonna be coming out.
Right.
And,
End of February is what we heard at the last IT meeting, is sort of the target. Kind of it's supposed to roll out for our review, or, you know, not for everybody.
Yep.
Just kind of for a limited audience. Check it out.
and I think, and in speaking to the, senior website, Mike, I think you've been involved in these things. I think once it was an old website, this is a new website.
Yep.
Believe it or not, it's an improvement.
That should be great.
Should be great, and I think, that, let's see how that turns out for looking for this, the senior center, and I'm sure that'll be a link, and it will be easier to maneuver. I think that's one of the goals.
Yep, I had seen a very early draft of the design that Coach had sent over to me for my opinion, and it was directionally night and day in terms of using best practices for website navigation, user experience. So I was just curious.
So I think it's
great.
premature to talk about a
Yep.
separate website, which costs money, and there's development things, and it's, I think you
It'll be a much
agree,
better
it's not
platform.
quite as easy as,
Yep. It brought the question. Lorraine's comments brought the question. So I think that's great. Good.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Your input was appreciated
Yeah.
by the group on that, by the way. I did hear that.
very well, many good disciplines on the board, and I appreciate that. Any other things on the reports? Consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
Wait a second, any discussion?
I would just say that Anthony Maisano's name is Maisano, one extra S in there. That's it.
I like to give a little extra there. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and it carries. Thank you. Transfers,
Just informational.
that's just informational to let you know we're doing it. That shouldn't be a problem. Minutes of the last meeting,
Move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
made and seconded. Any discussion?
I would just say that Joel is the vice president, not the chairman of Pierce Hollow Village.
I'll take that.
Sorry. just
Okay.
saying.
Gotta be careful with Naylor.
Me.
Naylor, who's Naylor gonna go?
There you
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. I gave a little first selectmen's report before. I just want to say something I came across at a couple of COG meetings. I just think I should let everybody here know, and John Monteleone is an alternate for the town. Oh, what's that?
Are you going unfinished
You went
business?
from I to L.
Oh, I missed it.
You're in unfinished business.
I'm on unfinished. Sorry, trying to get out.
Yeah, no, I know.
Unfinished business, banner policy. Look at me go, huh?
You're on a roll. You're crisp.
All right, well, it'll be nice to get rid of the banner policy tonight,
Gotta speak a
hopefully.
little bit louder.
I said it'd be nice to get rid of the banner policy tonight, hopefully. For purposes of discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the banner policy
Second?
as was circulated.
Jennifer seconded.
Second it? Okay. Any discussion?
Since the, two things I'll mention. Since the last meeting, you can see the red lines that were provided. Mike had raised some concerns. We talked to council, and together we came up with some language that I think met those concerns, but I think Mike should probably.
I'm comfortable.
mention-
The concerns were regarding ensuring separation of church and state as a main point of concern, and with town council and with Selectman Buxbaum's support, I think we've come up with language that covers that.
So, from my perspective, and other people may have other things they want to talk about, but everything else is the same as it was last time, and I think everybody was fine with most of it. The one issue I raised last time around that I'm going to raise again is I do think that the fee that we have in here is high, based on everything else I've seen. So when I went through this process of when I was asked to put this together, I gathered as many policies as I could find from throughout the state. It's not an exhaustive list because there's no place you go to just look at banner policies. But that would be nice, but that doesn't exist. And based on everything I saw, except for New Haven, which is a city and nothing like us, and an outlier, every policy I saw, the fees were below $200. A number of towns charge nothing. Some charge a refundable deposit. Some charge under $100. The highest fee I saw was $189. So I really think 300 is kind of high, especially given what we're doing. So what we've done now with this red line revision is we've again limited the types of events that will permit someone to advertise. And they fit into two categories. One is an event that provides a direct, substantial financial benefit to a town-supported function. So you're talking about something that taxpayers pay for. So we're helping all taxpayers by someone else contributing money to something that the town pays for. So we're helping the community as a whole. The other category is direct, substantial financial benefit to nonprofit organizations existing in the town that directly and substantially benefit residents of the town through their charitable functions. And I personally believe that if you're going to help the neediest amongst us, you're really helping the community as a whole. So these two very, very limited categories are categories in which we are assisting the community as a whole. If I know there was a concern, and it's been raised at meetings about, how we don't want signs up all the time, and we don't. But I think we limit that by having a policy that's narrowly tailored that only applies to very certain limited functions, and that's what I think we've come up with here. And we may need to tweak that as we go along if it's not working, but we've come up with that sort of criteria. So I think if we've made this decision that these things are helpful to the town, and if we're only going to allow this if there's going to be a financial benefit to some element of the town, then I think we should be fair to our volunteers. I know this banner is still here. It's a town that runs on volunteers, and I think we should be fair to our volunteers and our volunteer organizations. And I think we do that by charging a fair price. I don't think the price should be zero, but I think it should be a fair price. And it's something that we can adjust over time. So based on that, I've tried to come up with what I think is a fair price. I've talked to Jeff about this. There's no magic involved. It's just sort of what we think is fair. For me, I think that number is $150, and for purposes of discussion, I'd like to move to amend the motion to lower the fee to $150.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll weigh in on this. There is, hopefully we'll be more efficient as we put this up more often, or at least more than once. And I think there's a little learning curve, and we came up with a number based on what we knew at that time, and I think it's probably not going to be, take as long as it did before. The cable is there. It's mounted permanent, it's there, so that's going to take some out of it. So I think Jason and I discussed it. This, like I said, we started with a blank document. Jason worked it up, we got the things together, and I think we're ready to put this to bed, so to speak, tonight.
So I'll second Jason's amended motion.
You already did.
I did, I just wasn't sure if you heard me.
You want to comment on it, that's okay.
Right, well, I need you to say any discussion.
Sorry.
So I actually concur. I think that, I work for a nonprofit organization, national one, but even more so for a local nonprofit. $300 is a lot, and it's eating into whatever the fundraising is of that event. Most nonprofits don't have a pool. This shouldn't be a revenue source for us. It should be a break-even thing for us. So I think that if we believe, and we can always revisit that number. We reserve the right to, actually, in here. If we believe that the $150 covers our costs,
We can review it.
I think that's a fair number, because otherwise, again, it somewhat defeats the purpose. We're forcing a nonprofit or other organization to eat into the money they're raising to give back to the town in many ways. So I think it's
I also think it's important to note that there's no hard costs here, right? If we were hiring someone, if we had to pay some, these are soft costs. It's real costs because it's employee time, but it's budget neutral. This isn't, we're not going to talk about this over the next couple months. We talk about the budget. This has no impact, and it's helping our organizations that we've determined by this policy are doing something good that they're going to financially benefit.
And they're also
the town.
responsible for the cost of printing, producing the banner as well. So I think this is fair. I think we should move to a vote.
It's an investment in goodwill.
Yep.
It promotes it. We
I'll
should
call the
definitely-
vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries.
I think we need to vote again. So we voted on the
We voted on
motion to
amendment.
amend.
Okay.
Now we have to vote on the motion,
Okay, so now we need to move on the amended
the amended motion.
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and it carries. Okay. Ethics, amendment to ethic ordinance. Joe?
Come on down.
Come on down.
Hi, I'm Joe Ruggiero. For those who don't know me, I'm the chairman of the Ethics Commission. I've been working on a revision to the Code of Ethics. We've been at this since, I think, August now, and it's gone through some edits with some of the members of the Board of Selectmen here, and most recently, Town Council. So I think we're
Only
getting
August.
cure.
Only
I'm not
August,
sure.
huh? Not bad.
But the most recent round of edits, after Jeff Tinley, our town council, looked this over, were a little more substantive than I originally had planned on, but I think after discussing it with Jennifer and Jason, and we went over the edits that Jeff had introduced and made a few more, I think we've reached a consensus that we're comfortable with the language. We did change some of the language and broke out the definitions of interest. We now have direct interest, indirect interest, financial interest, and adverse interest. And this is something that Jeff had introduced. I think it's substantively the same as it was before. I think the language is a little different in the way it's laid out, but it essentially is the same as it was before. We did make another edit, which was to increase the gift amount from $10 to $25. In the words of our vice chairman on the Ethics Commission, he said you can't even buy a good six-pack of beer for $10, so he thought we should increase it. Anyway. I think the other edits were just for some consistency. Again, it was very important to me to have all of this consistent and the language consistent throughout the document, because it makes it a lot easier to interpret it when you're trying to adjudicate something, so. I don't really have any other comments. I don't know if Jennifer and maybe Jason would like to say anything about it, but
Only to say that your commission's work on this is, has been commendable, and especially your efforts in making it come to light. It is, we should all be held accountable by these standards in everything, in every aspect of our life.
oh, okay, well, I'm glad. That's very kind words, and I think it's, I agree with you. I'm sorry that Ann left, and Armin, I was going to say, you have to be really patient when it comes to making sure that
Since
somebody gets
August.
through. Yeah, and the banner policy, too. I know that went through some
That wasn't a-
long haul.
Who knew that would take this long?
In any case, we're getting there, so at least we're making some progress. So anyway, that's all I had to say. If there's any other questions, I'd love to answer
Any
them.
questions,
I just want to thank Joe and the commission for all their work on this. And just to let everyone know, since this was last before us, when it was here last time, we all approved it, subject to town council review. The stuff that's been changed, the only substantive change is the $25 increase in the gift amount. What's been introduced are different terminology, but how we define a conflict of interest and what that means and when you need to recuse yourself, all that is the same. It's just, it's said a little differently.
It's
But the
just-
standards
It's a definition, right? It's a definition of direct interest.
Right. It's
Indirect.
incorporating
That's how I read
the
it.
standards that already existed into definitions of different terminology that they're now at play throughout the document.
Okay,
So-
Thank you very much.
thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
We have a resolution.
Public hearing.
Do we vote to put it towards public hearing?
So we have to go to a public hearing now.
Right. Resolve the Board of Selectmen hereby sets the date of Thursday, February 2nd, 2017 at 7 PM in room 205 of the Southbury Town Hall to hold a public hearing to hear comments on the proposed amendments to the Code of Ethics Conflict or Interest Ordinance. Do I have a motion for that resolution?
So moved?
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded.
I have a question.
Discussion.
Will we formally be pushing back the start of the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 2nd till 7:30, since we normally start at 7?
We always do
Or
our.
can we do it?
They always start at the
They
time
just
of our
start at the
public
top
hearing,
and we can do it?
then we
Okay,
just go right
just
into
wasn't
it.
Because it could be like a minute.
Yep.
or-
Any other comments on the
So that was
resolution?
my only discussion.
Can I call the vote, Mike?
Please do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
That wasn't bad. August?
Wasn't too painful. Moving right along
It's
here.
important. It's good.
It's coming, Joe.
It also means that Jeff accepts IPAs, craft brews, beers. $25.
Only the good ones.
Make sure it's good beer. I mean,
What if it's sequential, like?
you can buy a 12-pack. It doesn't have to be a six-pack.
You should have brought that up in discussion.
Max $25.
Okay, Tax Relief Study Committee.
I don't have enough, I'm looking to get us together in mid-February to have a meeting and then meet twice a month until we have a recommendation.
I know you've been ill, so
Yeah, I was ill at the end of the year and then I've just been really busy with work, so
thank you, Mike.
I'm taking some days off.
New business, investment policy statement, reserve investment. John Riley is here for the board to answer some, I would say, more sophisticated questions that you might have. John, if you'd like to explain.
Yeah, let me give this up. Explain. Okay. Since we have a new board, and you're all new.
We're a year old.
We're here,
We are a year
We're
old.
wily veterans now.
Yeah, a year, but no one that sits here was on the board when we instituted this fund and so forth. So to understand what it's about, as you know, the town reserves money for future expenses, roads, land purchases, and so forth. For many years, that fund is aggregated between $7 and $8 million. And going way back, it has been, or had been, consistently invested in the state's short-term investment fund, okay? And I began to be concerned as a Board of Selectmen member, as a taxpayer, that even though much of this money would not be spent for 5 to 10 years, we were only investing at short-term rates. When short-term rates fell to being nearly negligible, and the stiff return fell to 0.18%, okay? I asked the Board of Finance, and the board agreed, to do a research project and find out if there's a better way to run this money. And working with town council and with fiduciary investment advisors, our investment consultant, we found that Connecticut has a specific statute allowing towns to invest reserve funds in other than the STIF. And it requires, as it says on your document, no more than so much in equities and at least 51% or 59% in government guaranteed or supported paper. What we did is we put together with FIA and on June 1st, 2015, started this fund and transferred about $7,200,000 out of STIF into this fund. Okay? What have the results been before I talk about this? We had a very slight loss in fiscal 15-16 because the market worked against us. Last year, we had a significant gain. Okay, last calendar year, this fund earned 2%, which is nearly 6 times what the STIF earned us. And going back to its inception, instead of earning 18 basis points, even though we had a loss a little bit in the first year, we've earned 1% since inception. That additional money, we talk about, everybody comes saying we're losing money. This has brought in $100,000 more in income to the town than we would have gotten in STIF. But what we've also done, the Board of Finance has said, if you look at, we're buying some short-term and intermediate-term treasuries, a little bit of equity. There's still a little bit of risk. So what we said is we're not going to take in all of the income into the income stream. We're going to take some of it into the income stream and use the residual to build up a valuation reserve in case we do have some type of a loss over a period of time. Okay? The Board of Finance will deal with that at its next meeting out of how much of this income we're going to take into income and so forth. Now, when the policy statement was first approved, and what we're amending is not the statement, but an appendix to the statement that says how the money is invested. Originally, it was, as you say, the target is 5% in equity, 85% in fixed income, which was, or 95, and all in short-dated fixed income. I have to explain what we're talking about here with numbers. Where it says cash, that doesn't mean dollar bills. That means cash or cash equivalents. Treasury bills, very short-term stuff, bank deposits that can be turned into cash. Where we're talking about short-dated fixed income, we're talking 1 to 3 years. Where we're talking intermediate term, we're talking 5 to 10 years, okay, generally. Now, what the initial policy didn't do is allow for any cash. And there are times when the investment advisors who are actually managing money want to buy and invest in securities that are under 1 year. And it wasn't provided by the policy. So all the amendment is to change cash from 0 to 10 as the target, okay, to leave equity at 5, which is an all domestic large cap equity, to reduce fixed income from 95 to 85, and to say, oh, that 65% is going to be short dated, which is 1 to 3 years, okay, intermediate is going to be 20%, which is 5 to 10 years, but we have ranges. And FIA has selected and recommended investment managers who work within these ranges and look at what the market is expected to do, okay? And then position these portfolios accordingly.
John, excuse me. I need help understanding the table. I went to the Board of Finance meeting. I understood the debate about, well, whether we had 0% in the intermediate fixed income. What I don't understand is why the column for the target weight doesn't equal 100%. So explain this table to me, please.
It's supposed to be. Well, we have 10%, these are the targets, okay? And there's then a minimum and a maximum. Working within the ranges, it'll all come to 100. The targets are 10% for cash, 85% in fixed income, that's 95 and 5% in equity. Those are the targets. The other ones, the
categories.
65 and the 20, are categories under that
The
target.
categories.
Understood.
Okay?
Got it.
It's a range, you
Got it.
have to work within those
That's
ranges.
Got it. Got it.
85, 5, and 10 are the ones you should be
Right.
looking at.
Right.
Those are the
Just the
categories.
bold.
Then, hence the bold.
Right.
There you go.
And just to support what I say here, okay, the initial recommendation for this came from fiduciary investment advisors. IPOC, the Investment Policy Committee, vetted it and said they agree with FIA's recommendation. It then came to the Board of Finance because any change in any investment policy, the Board of Finance has to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Finance vetted what IPOC and FIA did, and the Board of Selectmen said, yes, they recommend that the Board of Selectmen make this change.
So if you want to go to a meeting that really taxes your capacity, and I just want to say, John, I don't think any individual should be able to know as much as you do about this. It's a to bring, and then bring it into terms which we could understand from a and believe me, it's a little confusing, but you understand it now. And first thing I want to say before we get any further, I want to thank John. These people do a tremendous job. And there's not a lot of towns that are actually doing this in the state.
We are, from what we understand, the only town of our size in Connecticut. Some of the cities do it, and much bigger towns, but we understand we are one of very few municipalities in Connecticut that takes advantage of this particular legislation, letting us really manage that money to get the best return for our taxpayers. One of the things we were always concerned about in keeping it in the short-term fund is that we are collecting money from taxpayers to pay bills in the future. We were earning in the short-term fund a rate of return significantly below the rate of inflation. So we're at least trying to keep up with the inflation rate on what we earn here.
And there's a law about this, about how much you can't be.
Yeah, it is, if you
We're-
raise this up, statute is on the bottom. There is statute 108, okay? And it sets limitations on what we can do with that money, understanding there's a lot of risk if we put it all in equities and the equity market collapses. So this sets the limitations.
The SRA, is this the SRA?
What?
The Stabilization Reserve Account. It's in the ISP. This is a
The stabilization reserve account is separate.
Okay,
Because what I'm saying is we have cash coming in, earnings on the fund.
okay.
We have not yet taken any of that and recognized it as income for the town. What the Board of Finance said is we want to take only part of it, and then we want to keep the other part separate as a stabilization reserve, okay, in case we lose a little bit of money,
Makes sense.
that it doesn't make us reduce the fund on the books of the town.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yep,
Okay?
yep.
Any other questions? And I
Okay.
tried to make it as simple as possible.
John,
You always do.
I really appreciate all you've
That's
done.
great.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Quite honestly, my
Thanks.
office is
Thank you.
working a lot with John, and we couldn't do it without you. It's a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So we have a resolution resolved that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the attached amendment, Appendix A of the investment policy statement, reserve fund investment. Do I have a motion for it?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And it carries. Thank you, John, for your time tonight. Appreciate that. Appointment to Heritage Village Water Board of Directors. They're eager to get this done. Let me just say that, as anything, it sounds simple, but it's not always simple. So what's happened is, talking to a few people, what it means to be on a board of directors and fiduciary responsibilities, officers and directors' insurance to protect the board of directors from lawsuits and things of this number, like this. So I've come to, according to this the statute, I am the CEO of the town, and that's who is to be assigned, put on there, or someone from the Water Commission. So it wasn't as simple as that. So that's why it's taken a little bit, a few emails back and forth to make sure we're doing the right thing. That being said, I will tell you this, that I work for the board, I work for the town of Southbury. If something should come up, because fiduciary responsibility is to the stockholders, according to being on the board. I think that there's something there that is not good on the board that I don't feel is in the best interest of the town of Southbury, I will abstain in order to not put us in that position, or myself in that position. But I have decided that, with your permission, to be sitting on that board. So I think I need to be appointed.
A resolution? We don't need to? I totally support it. It makes perfect sense.
Any question?
No, I mean, I'll just note that the statute says we get a seat on the board, and as part of our settlement that we reached last month, what we did was we sort of set a time frame by which we would let them know who's going to be put on it, and that would be this meeting.
But we haven't
So-
had a representative thus
No,
far.
we haven't had a representative, I
Right.
don't think, ever, but.
Right, so, yes.
So if we want one.
I don't take it lightly when this comes up.
This is-
It's like,
Yeah,
just
it's
to
my-
jump on board. I did some research about what it means, what it is, and
It's my understanding that, back in May, I think, that Middlebury appointed their first selectman, that's in John too, to the seat on the board. What I would say is, Jeff, is, I wouldn't expect you necessarily to abstain if it's not in the best interest of the town. I'd expect you to vote no,
Object.
to object if it's in the best interest, if it's not in the best interest of the town, and I'm sure you would. It makes sense, and I'm fine with it.
the interesting thing is that, talking with some people who have sat on board of directors positions in the substantial boards of corporations, one of the issues is that any stockholder with 5 shares can place a lawsuit because they disagree that you didn't do what was right for the stockholder. And and you could get a lot of nuisance lawsuits, and so it is a concern, and you have to recognize what this means. And of course, I will be diligent with the town. I think where my heart is there.
So that fear of lawsuits is the reason for thinking of abstaining on issues that.
We have to be careful which master we serve. So, but it's I don't think it's a big deal because there's going to be transactions, there's going to be changes. A lot of it's a formality. So
It's transparent.
all right. So if would the board like to appoint me with the board's permission to sit on the board of directors?
So I'll make a motion to appoint Jeff Manville, first selectman, to the Heritage Village Water Company Board of Directors.
Second.
Is it made and seconded? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. First Selectmen's report, I think I've gone over a few things here and there. We're into the budget season. The office, we're working with people, we're getting some of them in. I am trying to modify some of these. Everybody wants something. Obviously, everybody wants something. But we have to be very careful this budget season, both in our current budget and in this next one. So we'll have we have some meetings going, that have gone on this week. We have some, Cindy has lined up time next week, and we'll get that to you in time, one way or the other. Reports from the liaisons. George Bertram?
I did attend an IT steering committee meeting, and I wrote it up in a report, so you can read it. I also handed out this wonderful chart that Ray Mather put together that,
Do we have that so you can pull it up?
Do you want me to explain it, George?
yeah, it's so simple, I'm sure.
You have a whole presentation planned, yeah.
We need a John Riley of the IT world for that.
You know,
We have that in Ray.
I go to these meetings and they're not easy to follow what these guys are talking about. I mean,
You're so
I'm a little bit of an IT guy, but I'm not at the level that these people are at. So I do the best I can. I summarized, sorry?
Thank you for that.
I summarized some of the highlights of the last meeting in this report, but I'd like to mention a few things. We do have a new volunteer, and I believe his resume needs to come before this board to be approved. Is anything circulated through the system, or didn't get it?
So we'll do it on the next meeting. We'll
I
get
have
it-
a
we'll get it
copy
out.
of his resume here if anybody wants it. Richard Kender is his name. He's a retired Heritage Village. All he does is work part-time doing projects. Been an IT manager for like his whole life. Seems to fit well with the rest of the people in the group. There is a new IT policy that, from what I understand, it was given to the labor attorney. Has that happened or no? It has, okay. Cindy
Labor
Gross.
attorney or town attorney?
Town attorney.
I think it's the labor attorney that I went to.
Really?
That's my understanding, yeah. Because it's a policy that affects employee
Yeah, so you have to make
behaviors
sure.
and things, so it has to go through that channel.
We'll get to all the right people.
Okay.
As I think we discussed it earlier, but the website is slated for a preliminary release in the end of February. Although I've heard dates mentioned before, so if it slides a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised. I know Gosha gets
Nature of the beast.
gets pulled in a lot of directions. I know she's working on special projects all the time, so. Just as a note, we have 55 PCs in the town hall, 25 PCs in the PD, and 50 what are called devices in the library. Some of those are PCs, just to give you a scope of just the PC population that Ray has to manage. On this, I won't go through the list, but there is a list of Ray's projects here. I won't read them all. You can read them if you want. One that I would mention that's come up from John Michaels, I guess he's brought it to everyone's attention, and I and everybody on the committee totally agree that this is a priority, but it's cybersecurity analysis. I mean, it's in the news all the time. People get hacked, credit card information gets stolen. I don't think the town is in a real secure position right now. We have some protections in place, but you know, we are at risk, as are most municipalities in the state. So I think that's something that maybe should jump to the top of the IT priority list, or at least get pretty high on the list.
There's a lot of talk about that in different COGs and in the CCMs, and you see more and more coming across about that. You know, if that.
The threat is growing exponentially. It's not just creeping up. I mean, it's probably 3 times more risk this year than there was last year. And it's just, the hackers are just getting smarter. John Kelbley, the chairman of the IT committee, is a Microsoft employee, very knowledgeable in these sorts of things. And he strongly recommends as well that we do more.
Well, I'd suggest that in this period of budget planning for the coming fiscal year, that the steering committee, you know, with Ray, under Ray's guidance, certainly consider putting that into the budget line to do it. There's no question that, you know, that the threat is real. And we're not a small little town, you know, and we have to protect the residents and you know, town information. So I think it's worth bringing that to Ray and suggesting it.
Is there a Wi-Fi policy in the manual that labor attorney's reviewing?
What do you mean?
Wi-Fi?
What do you mean by
I'm just
Wi-Fi?
thinking
So we have open
cybersecurity.
Wi-Fi, so anybody can.
Do we have, is there a Wi-Fi policy that's part of that that he's reviewing?
I don't, I
Is
think,
there a Wi-Fi policy?
I don't think so.
in the policy book that labor attorneys reviewing?
No.
No, I
No.
don't think so. I mean, the Wi-Fi is open, anybody can.
Now, use of
Well, no.
town, of the devices for town use, there's,
There is, that's, yeah,
There's
covered
that.
pretty.
Yeah, there's a
intensely.
Wi-Fi usage policy.
but Wi-Fi has no,
No, there was a whole issue at the library about the Wi-Fi and people coming in.
that's open.
Is there a time frame?
That's controlled by the library. I don't think the town has much.
If you're
say.
talking about being on or off,
It's either on or off.
Okay.
yeah,
That's the policy? I mean,
no, no.
so explain it to me, because I
Oh,
don't
absolutely.
understand it.
Yeah.
But we have policy, we fire, I assume, we firewall, we have a firewall up to block people from going to explicit, right, secure, right, but we also, even the open Wi-Fi though, I believe has security that blocks people from going to explicit websites, for example, or other,
Well, maybe it should be.
I don't know, I'd leave that to Ray, but I believe we have the practices in place for sure. My understanding.
I'm not really sure what the library has or doesn't have.
sure if it's on that chart.
Actually, I don't see the library on here, but the library is a big part of what Ray has to do.
Library,
with,
lower right.
so-
No, yeah, it's there.
Is it on there?
Oh, no, I don't see it.
Okay.
My point for bringing this up is that I think, based on sitting in all these meetings and talking with Ray and the other people, we might want to beef up our budget in terms of headcount in the IT department in the coming year. There's a lot of projects that he's working on, and a lot of projects that he'd like to work on. A lot of them are important. Things like cybersecurity.
One of the things we're hoping, George, is that we're looking at that, but we're hoping that one of the big projects that has been taking a lot of time has been the website. And so we're hoping that website gets rolled out and there's more time for other projects as part of that. That's our hope. So we'll take a look at that. We're gonna sit with Ray with the budget.
I know budgets it's always hard to increase headcount, and I don't make this recommendation lightly. I just, having gone through this with these guys and listened to the commentary back and forth, there's just so much that Ray is doing. It's amazing. I mean, the guy's carrying an incredible workload. I don't know how he does it, but I think we need to do more. I mean, I look at a town like West Hartford, for instance. I grew up in West Hartford. They have 25 full-time people on their IT department. Now, West Hartford is a town of about 63,000 people. And maybe some of those people work in the school system. I don't know if they do or not. But, using that as a gauge, I think having one, maybe 1.5 in IT, I think we're a little on the light side.
But if they include schools, then we have a lot more, because the Region 15 hires a lot of IT people.
Yeah, but
So
still.
if you including that number, it's not just 1.5 to 25.
No, I understand that, but it's still, I just think we're on the light side
Sure.
there. And
So one of the things that one of the things that happens at COG is you're talking about shared services. So at times, and there is some proposals for shared services, we're taking a look, now that we have the budgets in, and the idea is, if you need a security expert for cybersecurity, years ago you hired one person, they knew all about that thing on your desk, which was a pretty simple thing that we now carry in our pocket. And my wife is in that world also, and one individual can't know everything. So they're looking for shared services and how we can, we need an IT security expert. I'm sure every town needs that type of work. So you need to get that one person, and then by spreading it across a number of towns and municipalities, it won't cost as much as hiring that one individual. And if that makes, that's something we have to look at. Where we get that service, that expertise without, we can't hire an IT security specialist, which really is what you need.
Well, not full-time. I don't think you need
Right.
one full-time.
Right. So if you come up with through the COG, so we'll probably try to work in that direction with some of it. And like I said, it gives some time with the website rolled out, that's been a huge amount of Gosha's time getting all that information over, so.
Yeah, I'd also suggest that, and I do believe, I don't know this for certain, that there's probably grant funding opportunities that might be available on the IT security front. Certainly, I know there are as it comes to things like looking at how do you prevent and monitor cyberbullying, for example. But if we look at the broader cybersecurity issues, I'd have to believe that in this day and age, there might be some grant funding.
True, but
worth looking into.
to your point, that's only another thing added to
Yeah.
Rick's plate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
and
doesn't
he's
necessarily
already
mean-
got a
Right.
full
But that's-
plate and then
Right.
But the research
it's
doesn't have
valid.
to be done just by Ray. There's a committee. Someone on the committee can take
do
that
the
on their
research.
plate to do some research and to see if something
great
exists or
idea.
not. So.
And the said, I mean, let's face it, today, they're hacking some of the most sophisticated computer systems, and security experts that are working for people, for these corporations that are, how far, I mean, you want to go that as far as you can, but it's amazing what can be done. But I agree, we need to keep looking, and that's been a talk at CCM. People have actually talked about cybersecurity and the risk, and we are at risk. Everybody's at risk right now, and even with things in place, you're still at risk. And when you have foreign governments who are, let's be honest, many foreign governments have rooms full of people who are working to hack our systems, and and they are getting through.
I wouldn't say we're defenseless, but I think
Right.
we're likely
It's a difficult
defended.
situation.
And there are towns in Connecticut that have been hit by the crypto locker virus type of thing, where you have to pay a Bitcoin ransom to get your data back, which is not a good, it could happen here.
And you keep, if you see, many times I see something going to Ray, is this really something I should be,
Clicking on.
I don't think I should
Yeah.
click on this. And, or we just delete it. And if it's, somebody's trying to get a hold of me, they will call or something, but.
And I'd say, by the way, not only for the town, I think the town also, as we look at it for our purposes, the town can play a role in helping to educate our citizens on their own personal cybersecurity as well. It's a growing issue, especially with an aging senior community that are continually targeted for that type of fraud. So, great.
Anything else, George?
I'm good.
Selectman Betty is under the weather. We hope he's gonna be better. Jason,
I did not have any meetings since our last meeting, so no
Okay.
report.
Jennifer?
Planning was postponed till next Tuesday. Senior Commission did meet. Tameth told the committee, introduced the new coordinator, Kathy, to the committee, and she also informed the committee that the Board of Selectmen approved the manual, and the committee had some minor edits to it, so I think that's just going to be tweaked, and that's going to be launched in the beginning of February. And I think that's, other than what Lorraine mentioned about their desire to have a website, and they are trying to put together a program of volunteers, although they had a program of volunteers, so I was a little confused with that point. And that's it on that point. But I'd
Can I ask
also,
one question about the Heritage Village website? Who does that? Is it somebody doing it for free within the?
Yeah.
So it's a volunteer?
Yes, but we have some people that are particularly good at it, and I would suggest, contacting them. And they do it for free.
Well,
And
free,
I
if
would
it's free, it's for me.
just lastly like to say that I'd like to prayerfully acknowledge tomorrow's inauguration and continued healing for our country.
Let me just say that on be clear, we approved I want to go back to the hand, that's been approved by the board. The only edits that will be coming will be grammatical, or I guess there's some misspelling.
Not substantive.
Nothing.
Because it's been
It's all
approved.
editorial edits.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Mike?
Parks and Rec did not meet, I should go in order. Yeah, Parks and Rec hasn't met since, but their next meeting is on the 26th. EMS hasn't met since last, they meet on the 1st. Region 15 met, nothing of significant note. You've noticed they've been in the news a little, they did some news about Region 15 and a lawsuit with a Middlebury, Waterbury resident. So I expect next week's meeting will be rather highly attended, but nothing of note there beyond the fact that they have released the 2017-18 school calendar, because they went to a regional calendar with other regions, schools in the district. They're not releasing a 3-year calendar anymore, but the first day of school for the 2017-18 year is August 29th. Put it on your calendars. And that's it. And tax relief, like I said, I'm trying to meet by mid-February so we can get that going, and we'll meet twice a month until we're done.
Do they talk about graduation at all?
I
I can't
Listen,
find it
that's
anywhere.
okay. Whenever they graduate, they graduate.
Graduation, what are you looking for?
For the
It'll
seniors.
happen.
For the seniors.
the
The
date?
day of graduation.
It'll
It's just,
happen.
it's no,
I don't remember, but
you
I'll
don't
find
know
it.
how I need it to happen.
I'll find it. I've got a year for that.
Wait till
help
they
me
get
out.
into the college, and then you'll really want to graduate.
And I will say selfishly that the Pomberog Watertown co-op hockey team is 6-2 and in 4th place in the division. Best start
Awesome.
they've had in about 7 years. So
You see that 14-year-old?
since they won the championship,
Did you see that 14-year-old kid that plays hockey?
we play them in a 2.
Sorry to hear it.
We play them on Wednesday actually, East Haven.
Okay. All right, any other business? Jason, do I hear a motion?
To adjourn?
I have a second?
Second.
Hey, what's that? We have no executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You were hacked in the village.
All our stuff.
Crypto locker?
Betsy, I assume you want me to keep these pens?
It was Sacred Heart